for this session today. Thank you for everyone who's joined in, and we have an amazing panel with us today. Before I will introduce you to them in a couple of minutes, I would like to introduce Startup Grind to you guys. So, Startup Grind is community of entrepreneurs with about 5 million entrepreneurs and present across 600 chapters and 125 countries. We inspire, educate, and connect entrepreneurs. Our basic values are what we live by are that we make friends, not connections. Give before we take, and help others before you help yourselves. We can say that we are world's largest community of hosting thousands of events across the globe almost every week to connect entrepreneurs, investors, and founders. We learn from each other and try and co-create a growing environment. So if you're looking to connect and thrive as an entrepreneur, do get in touch with us, and hoping many more to come, and to meet you guys personally in the physical events that we will hold on in the future, which we'll communicate to you in a short while. Just house rules. Everyone is on mute except the speakers, and so if anybody has any questions, please put your questions in the chat box that is available. And if there are any questions, there will be a Q&A session after all the speakers are after our session with the speakers is done. Also, before I begin, I would want to introduce our chapter director, Dr. Tejinder Singh, to you guys, and I would like him to speak to start this event. So over to you, Tejinder sir.
Thanks, Kinjal. I hope I'm audible to everyone. Good morning, friends. A very heartily welcome to everyone in this inaugural chapter event for Chandigarh for Startup Grind. And just to give you a quick brief, I've been a chapter director for Qatar for about more than 4 years now. I started this in 2018 when I was actually being on a journey of a serial entrepreneur and turning slowly into investor way back in 2018. And so I started this in a small country called as Qatar, which is a part of GCC, not very far from Dubai, if people don't know about Qatar. But yes, I think people would know about Qatar after the FIFA event. So so been there and started the chapter, ran it for about 4-5 years very successfully. And we thought we should do something in India, and Chandigarh being our base for our company, which is a back office, one of our back office of the group company. So we thought we should do it from Chandigarh. And Chandigarh has been a little, I would say, isolated from the action of the startups and the investment landscape. But it's a huge potential because it connects, it's an epicenter of 3 big states in the northern India, and which is Haryana, Himachal, and Punjab. All we know that. And so we thought we should have this chapter, and we'll connect the startups, we'll connect the investors, we'll connect the people who are part of the ecosystem into this series of events that we're going to have it. Going back to Qatar, let me just tell you that Qatar has been last 4-5 years, Startup Grind has been running very successfully. The core strength of Startup Grind in Qatar, what I found was that it connects the investors, the startups, the ecosystem very well. I mean, there is hardly any startup, any investor, any contributor to the ecosystem that has not come into our event in Qatar, not has participated in the Qatar, or not leveraged the benefit of Startup Grind. Each one of them has leveraged the benefit of Startup Grind, and I think it's been out and out success for us, and that has encouraged me to bring up the first chapter in India for 360 Nautica, which is the Chandigarh chapter. And I welcome you all to the inaugural event today. Hope everyone will enjoy the information being shared by Neha, Himanshu, Ananya, and Shivangi. And Kinjal is, I'm sure Kinjal is going to put up a great host. So over to you, Kinjal, and thank you everyone once again for being part of this event.
Thank you so much, sir. I think indeed it's an opportunity for all of us to learn a lot from you and what we've established in Qatar, and we really definitely want to replicate that in the Chandigarh, because Chandigarh is also an upcoming tech hub after Bangalore and Hyderabad. I think a lot of tech entrepreneurs are coming from Chandigarh now. So So I think it will be a great opportunity to learn a lot of things from you. Thank you, sir. Going ahead now, great. So I think we should begin our event now. I would like to introduce our moderator for the session today. That is Neha Puri. I'm sure she does not need any introduction, but she's the founder of Weibo Digital, an influencer herself, a very renowned one, and a backbone of the startup ecosystem over here in India, being an investor herself. So thank you for taking out time for us, Neha, on a Saturday morning, and request you to take over this session now. All yours, and please do highlight about your journey and do introduce our panelists to the audience. And here you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Kinjal. Thank you for the introduction. Good morning, everyone. Firstly, thank you, Tejinder sir, for giving us this opportunity to, one, talk about the industry that's very close to my heart. I've had startups before this, but I think this is where I feel I've found my ground as well. But hello, everyone. I'm Neha Puri. I'm the founder of Weibo Digital. And firstly, again, honored to be a moderator today. When I joined, when we started this business, it's been about 3 years now. And ever since, one thing I can say for sure is that this is an ever-evolving landscape. We at Weibo Digital have, over the last 3 years, collaborated with multiple influencers, and we've kind of had a reach of 50 million plus viewers that we've engaged with. We are the second fastest growing market when it comes to influencer marketing, and we're privileged today to have key players, all of them who in their own way have harnessed the potential of this industry. So one, I would firstly thank everyone who's here, and would really appreciate if all our panelists today can introduce themselves. Ananya, if you can start and let us know a little bit more about you.
Sure. Thanks a lot for that, Neha. Let me just tell you a little bit about myself. I come from a branding and communication background. I used to be a tennis player. I used to play tennis internationally. Had a lot of back injuries, had to stop. And that's when I decided to use my years of experience going around the world. I used to play in Turkey, the USA. I played all around the world during my initial years to actually use that towards building a brand. I used to run my own agency by the name of Branded, have worked with a lot of marketing agencies, influencer marketing agencies, and a lot of brands like Trident, Nike, Tynor during that time. But that is when I decided that I wanted to do something of my own. And I started Sukham with my 3 co-founders. And so how did Sukham start? So as I don't think a lot of people know, but let me just talk a bit about my brand, Sukham. Sukham is a sexual wellness brand for men that is focused on Ayurveda, and that is based on the principles of Vajikarna, which is a very old, it's a 5,000-year-old science that actually treats sexual disorders and not just suppresses the symptoms, the only kind of that's in the world, right? So what we did is nothing but bring that to focus, and read a lot about the background that we come from. So India has a lot of heritage. India has a lot of medicine that we have forgotten about in modern times, right? That is all that we're doing. We are not bringing anything new, that it's always been there, right? And why sexual wellness for men? I think sexual wellness in general is a very big taboo, especially in a place like India, but especially for men. As a woman, I'm sure, Neha, you know that we go to gynecologists and we are able to talk to people about that, right? But who do men go to? Do you also know? The doctor for their sexual dysfunctions.
Now you've got me thinking, but no.
It's urologists and andrologists in modern medical science, and Vajikarna specialists in Ayurveda. But hardly anybody knows, not even men do, right? Because there is so much taboo attached to it. They are scared of going out. So that is one thing that we are trying to solve at Sukham. We want to create a platform where they can come and talk freely about their sexual problems, their issues, anything that is concerning their health, and we are there to provide a solution for that.
Lovely, Ananya. One, I think hats off that you've not given up and you kind of found your ground now as well. So congratulations on that. We've got Himanshu with us as well today. Himanshu, would love to know a little bit more about you.
Sure. So I share a similar background. And talking about Chandigarh, I am originally from Chandigarh. So I did my engineering from Punjab University. And then I did my MBA in marketing from Maika Ahmedabad. So after that, I was in influencer marketing agency, branding, everything related to influencers. So I personally have dealt with hundreds of influencers from tech, fashion, all sorts of categories, and with dozens of brands on influencer marketing campaigns since 2019. And so since 2019 to 2022, I was managing influencer marketing for an agency. I was leading the influencer marketing chapter. And in 2022, we saw this trend all over the world that there are CGI influencers, there are 3D influencers that look like human beings but don't actually exist. And there was one influencer in each country. USA had one which had 3 million followers. Japan had one which had 400,000 followers. And no one in India had done it. And we thought this had huge potential in India. Just the amount of users that we have. India has the most amount of users on Instagram than any other country. So we thought this had huge potential. And by the end of 2022, we decided that we would be the ones to do it in India if no one else is doing it. And then we went into the development process. It took us about 3 to 4 months, and we launched the first virtual influencer of India called Kyra in 2022. And so luckily people responded to it. She now has over 200,000 followers. She has worked with some of the top brands in India and the world. And we founded our own company called Future Studios. So we are calling ourselves the first virtual human company of India, and excited to talk about Kyra and other upcoming virtual humans in the influencer marketing space.
Thank you, Himanshu. I'm sure there's a lot that everyone's going to get to learn from you. We've also got Shivangi with us. Hi, Shivangi.
Hello, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning, Shivangi. How are you? You're always full of energy, so it's great to have you on Saturday morning.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Today, my energy might seem to be a little dipped. I have not been keeping well because of Delhi pollution. So it has been crazy ever since Diwali has ended.
No, but take care. Thank you for still taking time out. Shivangi, you and I have been in touch for a while, but would be great if you can share a quick introduction about yourself so that the rest of them get to know a little bit more too.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. A very warm good morning to each one of you. My name is Shivangi. I run my own company by the name of Skilldify. We are an outsourced training partners for corporates out there. How I started out my journey as a trainer. When I say a trainer, I would rather say that I started out as a tuition teacher, eventually turned into an English language coach, then into an IELTS trainer, eventually got my hands into soft skills training, started training companies employee, and then finally got onto the CXO and C-suite level employees training. And that's when I was in my last year of college, I opened my sole proprietor company. That's my parent company even till today. Royal Solution. We kind of help companies with all the outsourced needs for corporate trainings. And I was lucky enough to work with companies like Google, Microsoft, British Council, American Express, and many more in the list. Eventually, while I was doing all of this, I realized that there's a big problem into the corporate. So now what we are doing, we are also building a SaaS around conversation intelligence. So for example, when you talk to someone from Myntra or from Blinkit, you always have a customer support team, right? Now the support teams, as you know, they always say this line, your call is being recorded for training and quality purposes. So I thought of picking up that problem statement in and around India, and I would say in the world itself. So after training a lot of companies, designing their learning journeys, aligning business needs, helping them into, building some campaigns around the process and strategies which could help them, generate more return on investment and also impact the revenue of the company and the kind of experience that people are giving to the customers. That's when I thought that we are going to develop a tool. So I, along with my two co-partners, we are developing a SaaS for conversation intelligence for all the companies that deal into customer-facing employees. So this particular tool would help us understand the quality of the calls using AI. So that's another experiment that I'm doing now at the age of 25. So let's see how it turns. The tool would be live by the month of January, and we are very excited. So yeah, that's a little about me. I always wanted to become an entrepreneur because I come from that family. So luckily, I have never been into a full-time job because it was always very dreadful. So I wouldn't say I'm a serial entrepreneur, but I am the one who keeps on experimenting with all the business ideas. I happen to start my chocolate business. I happen to start my gym, my yoga center. So anything and everything in the world where I see that money can be minted in no time, I think of building a business out of it. And there have been a lot of failed attempts there. But somehow it's always exciting. So I always say this to everyone, that there is no harm in experimenting. As long as you're experimenting, your life is moving, and that's more important than anything. The moment things come to a standstill, even when you are running a very profitable company, or let's say you are building like a giant, all of that is okay. But if things aren't moving, if there's no motion, that could be a right motion or a wrong motion, but there has to be motion for things to be in active place. So I think that's important, and that's about it.
That is great, Shivangi. I've always known you've been an inspiration, and I think it's true. You learn from your failures, so no failure is actually a failure if you've learned out of it. But all of us are here today to discuss about the influencer marketing industry. Everyone in their own way has kind of been associated with the industry, and there are great numbers of saying that it's increased by 21% in 2022. It's 17% in this year, but I think somewhere or the other we all are working on ground. So there's a lot of it that we know which maybe numbers support or they don't support. So my first question to all of you, and I'm going to start with you, Shivangi. You're a very recognized LinkedIn and Instagram influencer. And, what are your thoughts and insights on the current contemporary landscape of influencer marketing? You picked up a very niche genre, if I can say. While a lot of them go into lifestyle and beauty, you picked up something which is different, which again came from your skill set. But would love to know a little bit more about your journey as an influencer, and also, what are your thoughts on numbers and also what the industry today looks like?
Great. So I'll take you back to the time when I was into fashion. I have done modeling for a couple of years, and I come from a family where both of my parents, they are fashion designers, and they never wanted me to get into fashion industry at any cost. So I experimented taking my NIFT exam. I couldn't crack it. I got into fashion designing. I couldn't make that. Modeling, I had to leave halfway. But somewhere or the other, I think I was very sure that I wanted to get into this glamorous world. But I didn't know that it was through a different path that God has planned. But being an influencer was there in my head almost 8 years, or let's say 7 years back. I wanted to be an influencer, and that's when I kept a very cheesy name for my Instagram page, a Royal Salad, which has nothing to do with my corporate work or whatever I do in my life. But I always felt that I'm just like salad, super colorful, trying and experimenting every shit in life. So that's when I started. I think if I go back to that time where I wanted to get into beauty and lifestyle blogging, which I couldn't accomplish because it was too tough, I had to leave that halfway, and then I stopped doing all of that. So looking at the things happening back like 5 years before, if you look at from this time, I think the landscape has changed completely. First, there were very, very few influencers that were there. There was no concept called influencer. There was a concept called blogger.
Yeah, true.
So eventually, transitioning from being a vlogger to an influencer, and then during this while, you would also have seen content creation being emphasized so emphatically that people have started understanding the need of producing. Back then, it was all about showcasing things that you were really good at. But today, things have changed, and it's more about the impact. So if I look at things happening from that time to now, I feel it has evolved for the betterment of an influencer, or let's say for a content creator, to that of the audience, because everything is getting very meaningful. Now, there was a time during COVID where you felt every house had an influencer, and everybody was producing, everybody was getting viral. luckily. But the impact was getting reduced. In fact, if I talk about LinkedIn these days, or if I talk about Instagram, now the algorithms have changed to an extent where algorithms are just pushing the content which is super valuable. And when I say super valuable, there's a lot of competition in this industry, because of lately in last 1 year, I have seen a lot of hike in the number of influencers that are born on this planet. So yes, things have changed. They have moved towards impact, they have moved towards value, they have moved towards learning. So why I picked up this industry? Because intentionally I never wanted to become an influencer. I had no plans after quitting my blogging journey for a while. I thought I will never get into this because it's not a good industry. But somehow when I started creating content on LinkedIn, and then finally one fine day I thought I'll start on Instagram, and it went so crazy that within 365 days we hit our 100K, and I got that celeb feeling, because it eventually was. So I think it's more about the value that you add, and it's about originality. I have never believed in being very fancy. I always want to talk to a human, and that's when I feel that it has to be more human to human. The more things get very jazzy. So I'll give you an example. Off lately, I got a photo shoot done for all my pictures and all. I thought I'll put it on LinkedIn and make sure that my pictures are similar to that girl Karishma. But then I don't know if that is true or not, but I'm just giving it a wild thought that originality matters to an extent that even those pictures weren't working very well. They were very fine quality pictures. And then I realized that, Shivangi, I think you were right. You know, people want to see very humanized, and they want to see real life. They would not want to see that glamorous part of what you are doing or whatever it is. And that's when I stopped putting in all my pictures. My yellow blazer was all over the internet for quite a long time. And then I took a break from that blazer, and I thought I'll just go the way I am going. So it's more about originality. And if I talk about numbers, I have started doing influencer marketing campaigns from last 2.5, 3 years. But last year, or I should say 2023, it has been an amazing one in terms of the kind of quality that the brands are looking. Back then, they were like, bring anybody with an X number of followers. Our benchmark is to get 50,000 followers or a 100K follower influencer on LinkedIn. But now things are not happening this way.
Yeah,
not at all.
I'm going to come to this point, Shivangi, because this requires a lot more detailing.
Exactly.
But Ananya, to understand from you and to get a little bit of a brand perspective as well. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but I've been in this industry for 3 years, and I've kind of realized that a product like yours, which is in men's sexual health wellness, is not something which maybe a lot of influencers or content creators might pick up in the very first go, or might be very comfortable working around with. Now, we've also seen a lot of traditional brands which started with OOH and TVCs kind of making that switch to influencer marketing. So what is your take on, one, influencer marketing for a product like yours? I'm not going to call it unique. I'm not going to call it niche, because as you've explained earlier, your product is something which is actually a need for a lot of people. So what is the shift that you've seen in a lot of brands? And, you've been in this industry for long enough, from when you started till today. While quality and relatability, as Shivangi said, is very, very important, what are the other points that maybe you as a brand today feel is maybe missing, or is something which people have been able to work upon?
So, as a brand, I think what influencers have been able to do has been incredible. Let's first see that before going on to what they are not able to achieve for us, right? So what they have been able to achieve for us versus what a traditional marketing method, like even endorsement campaigns, right? So with endorsements, they only worked till the deal was on. It only worked till, say, Shahrukh was on the ad of Sunfeast. But as soon as the deal went off, the sales dropped. Then and all brands have seen this. It's been a pattern, right? So, and as internet has grown, so has education in masses. So I think the educated audience is looking for a little more than just Shah Rukh using Vimal, or say Salman Khan wearing Lux Cozy. They are not satisfied with just that. They can see authenticity and originality within the first 5 seconds, right? So I think it's very hard to fool the audience today, because every person, even no matter who you are, you have a smartphone in your hand, and you are on social media every single day. So I think for brands, it's very important to observe and ensure that we choose the right influencers for our target audience. Now, when it comes to my company Sukham, there are two parts of it. There is the needy, and then there is the greedy. So the needy I've already explained. So the greedy are people who are just looking to enhance performance, just wanting to make their life better. It's easy for influencers, for people to promote these products and these plans, right? But when it comes to needy, a lot of influencers don't want to engage with the brand because it affects their brand value. It affects how people perceive them and what they might think of them, right? So that is one big challenge that we have been facing for a very long time. So how did we combat that? We created our own influencer. So what we realized is that we're not going to find the right person for the job. Let's create the job, right? So what we did is that we made sure that our own doctors become an influencer. So our HOD Ayurveda, Dr. Ravindra Kaushik, we started working with him on Instagram. When we started, he had around, say, 500 followers. Today he has around 20K with no spend, with no, probably we post like once a week. And his deals go to like 1 million, right? So it's been a journey. So our thesis has become that we will create our own doctors, influencers, and that can be possible even for a brand. So that is something that we
Super. And Himanshu, when it comes to creating our own influencers, I think you are someone who's done that to a great extent and to adding a lot of value. Himanshu, one thing, and I was reading about this where I believe in China there were certain celebrities that were caught up with bad publicity, and that's where they felt that let's create a virtual influencer because they're never going to have a bad image. It's easier to work around with them. So one would be great if you can tell us a little bit more about what these virtual influencers are, and given the size of the market today, I'm sure there's a lot that ads as a revenue stream for virtual influencers as well.
Right. So virtual influencers, before 2015, the 3D technology we had, we were able to distinguish what was real and what was not. But we are at a stage now that we are unable to distinguish between what's a real human being and what's a virtual human being, especially with the recent developments in AI. So this virtual human concept really picked up when the 3D technology got so realistic that people were not able to tell that if this is a real person or not. We always had brand mascots, we always had caricatures that represented brands, but never real human beings. So that is what a virtual influencer is. It's a photorealistic virtual human that is present on social media and creates content and promotes brands. And I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
So one is that, in how the influencer market in itself is growing.
Right.
So I was like, we were asking Shivangi that, she picked up a very niche when it comes to Instagram.
Right.
So today, what is the model like for a virtual influencer when it comes to working with brands?
So I'll talk about the broader influencer market first. I think in India, we are in a very unique situation from the rest of the world that we always had America as the soft power when it comes to culture. That we always followed American TV shows, whether it was Friends or we always followed American brands like McDonald's. I think India is at a point when we can be the soft power for internet. People love to follow Indian content creators. Even American content creators or Western content creators are focusing on Indian content. So in India, we are at this unique opportunity that whatever category you are in and whatever type of content you're making, you are at the right point to really pick off whether you are in a category like Shivangi, whether you are a doctor, whether you are a finance person, and of course the fashion and beauty categories will always be big. So this is the golden time for influencers, regardless of what kind of content you're making. You can be successful, you can start getting followers, you can start earning, you can start working with brands. So that is my perspective. I think we are in the golden era of influencer marketing. And whatever numbers that you see, we have about 500 million users on social media. That means we have 700 million people left to join, because we are a country of 1.5 billion people. So it's not the peak. We are going to get to the peak in the next 5 to 10 years. Where virtual influencers come in, of course, there's the idea of controlling influencer, but we don't really see it from that perspective, that a real influencer might get into controversy and the brand starts to leave that and goes into a virtual influencer. We see virtual influencers as a very powerful storytelling tool, that there is no limit to the imagination when you start using this CGI technology or AI technology. If you have ever shot anything, you know it's very difficult to create a very grand ad. But with virtual influencer, what you would used to do with a 20-30% crew, with a lot of green screen, with a lot of production, you can do it without any physical shoot at all, and you can do it in much lesser time. So there is no limit to the potential of storytelling. For example, with some of the brands, we have created ads that were in spaceships. With a very recent ad that we did with Titan was a spy thriller ad. So there is no limit to the imagination on what kind of stories that you can tell. We really compare it to a fictional character. For example, the Marvel Cinematic Universe worldwide, everyone follows it, and we are really inspired by those characters. We are trying to create a similar universe, and we have seen this with other virtual influencers across the world as well. They're trying to create larger than life characters that you can follow on our traditional social media platforms.
But Himanshu, just to follow up the question to this as well, and again, I'm just going to say this because maybe it's a question in my mind too. And I know you have an influencer now on LinkedIn as well, I think, who writes content. But to understand, virtual influencers and human influencers as of now might be poised for coexistence, that, both of them grow together. But two questions. One, what is the questions maybe that you've been asked, or what is your understanding on the relatability fact of it? We always say that on a hoarding, we would never relate to Amitabh Bachchan because we knew his life is very different. So that's why influencers kind of became more relatable. As for virtual influencers today, one, what is the sort of relatability that a person feels with them? And also secondly, that, what is the future that you think of this? Because, you've done a lot of brand campaigns for Kyra as well. So, is that because the relatability factor is fit in, or is there something else? I mean, for a lack of reference, has it been that it's more cost effective, it's easier to get her to do reshoots? What is it that's actually led to the growth?
Right. So relatability was never a challenge for us. I think we have set out Kyra as a fashion influencer, and we have had lots of people follow her for her fashion sense. I think it's similar to a fictional character, that if you look at something like Peter Parker or Harry Potter, even though it's a fictional character, right? There's no real person, but people follow them religiously. They follow everything that they do. They follow each and every comic, each and every movie. So we see these virtual influencers as characters, and it's only up to the storyteller on how good and relatable they can make it. And I also have this perspective that there is a space for an aspirational influencer, whether virtual or real, and a relatable influencer. So we'll always have those people like Amitabh Bachchan or Kendall Jenner. That will be the aspirational, that everyone wants to be them. And then there are relatable people like Carrie Minati or Bhuvan Bam or Mr. Beast, that they feel like it's just their next door friend, or they're just like themselves. So I think there is space for both of these personalities in both virtual and real. So Kyra we also see as someone who's inspirational, aspirational, and then we are working on more relatable content creators, virtual content creators as well. In terms of what advantages does it give to a brand, the one thing that is a key advantage with a virtual influencer is all influencers who have 100,000 plus followers get a lot of messages. I'm sure Shivangi must be getting dozens of messages daily, right? But as a real person, she can only reply to a few of those, or maybe not even a few of those. But as a virtual influencer, they can reply in real time using AI to all of them at once. And we are working on something that they can even talk to them in video calls. So a virtual influencer can at a time talk to 100 people at once, whereas a real human being can only talk one-on-one to one person. And this is something that we see. So when we talk about both of them coexisting, we believe all of these technologies will be employed by the real influencers. So whether you look at virtual effects, some creators are already using it, or AI. Facebook recently launched AI versions of creators. So there will be a coexistence that these technologies will now move on towards the real creators as well.
Okay. Shivangi, you've been, as you said, you've been writing content for a while now, and 2023 has been a great year for you in terms of brand collaborations. Now, a couple of things that, as questions have been raised, or, a lot of brands that we work with ask us is that, what is the ROI that we're going to get? Because the points of likes and those metrics are all over. Clients want, or brands want an outcome out of it. So when you do campaigns, be it a LinkedIn or an Instagram, how do you see to it that your content is something which can get an ROI for the brand? And also, what are the kind of KPIs that you as an influencer feel that should be very important for a brand? I'm happy if you want to divide it between LinkedIn and Instagram, because both are very, very different platforms.
I think if you go by Instagram, you have click rates. You can see how many of them have opened that link, especially the story posts that we have. So the metrics are very clear because Instagram gives you a lot of numbers. In fact, nowadays, LinkedIn has a full-fledged detailed Excel sheet coming out which talks about the analytics of the post. However, I think off lately brands have become more mindful. There was a time in between where brands were mindlessly doing campaigns with influencers because they had an X budget and they were like, okay, get us 10 influencers in this budget. But now they are being very, very sensible and sensitive towards this. So if I talk about Instagram, it's pretty simple. Instagram has always been a platform where I personally feel, because I do not come from a B2C category, I've always dealt with B2B businesses in my life. So for me, Instagram is more about having an X number of views, more comments, more engagement, and then probably clicks or something like that people can track from the report that you get. But if I talk about LinkedIn, that is absolutely different from Instagram, because the kind of mindset that people have is like integrating it with corporate people, because LinkedIn is known for that. So I'll give you an example of one of the very interesting campaigns, and one of the highly paid campaigns that I've done in my life, especially on LinkedIn, is with OnePlus T. They have launched their open phone. This this phone is like an open phone, which is like a tablet. And they reached out to me. We had a couple of discussions. So my question to them was, why aren't we doing it on Instagram? So the brand very nicely said that this particular phone has been designed and created and invented because of an intent that this can help people like us. So I was amazed to see the kind of conceptualization that the brands are doing is amazing, super amazing. So one of the very, very as I told you, highly paid campaigns, I was so shocked to see that the brand was just trying to bring in more awareness. They were like, we don't want high numbers, we don't want anything, we just want a very subtle way of marketing. And literally, when I say subtle way of marketing, they had no aspirations from that content piece. It was just more of awareness. So according to the campaigns that companies have, they would have different kind of objectives. Similarly, there was a campaign with a company called Loss Eco, Skill Arbitrary. Now that is something which has to do with the B2C audience. Again, in LinkedIn, they want to cater to they want to cater to individuals, right? So that is where they wanted more clicks. And I remember that the click rate was not very good on day one. And that's when we were figuring it out what needs to be done next. So we had to repost it. I had to use my other distribution, my Telegram, my WhatsApp groups to post it so that it at least kick off that basic amount of traction that the brand is looking at. So I think with the kind of brands and the objectives that they're trying to achieve, they have got different metrics. And platforms are giving it very nicely these days. If you talk about the awareness campaign, you talk about click rates, you'd get that on LinkedIn, you'd get that on Instagram, both. So a lot of things have been transforming, and I think it depends upon the objective of the campaign, and brands are being very mindful about why they are doing it, with which influencer and why not. I'm sure Neha would have been dealing with all of that. Of lately, brands have become a little choosy with the kind of influencers they want, and they are not going with the mere numbers.
Yeah. Yes. And I think LinkedIn as a platform, I think Shivangi, you will vouch for this as well. When we started out, a lot of times there were questions about, how am I going to promote this on LinkedIn? To be very honest, but I think the content in itself is something which plays the most important role.
True.
And Ananya, again, coming back to what are the kind of, we've all spoken about relatable content. We've all spoken about the importance of content, which, the other person feels like it's been spoken to them about and not just like a mass message which has been sent. What have been some of the marketing strategies that have really worked well for you? And again, given the fact that maybe influencers is something that you had to create in-house in itself.
Yeah.
So more like a marketing sort of an answer and not specifically related to this industry. What's really worked well for you over there?
So in terms of influencers, or I would like to add to what Shivangi just said about how brands are looking for brand awareness nowadays. So I think for brands especially, it's very important to plan it well, right? You will have to test it out. It's just like any other marketing. It's not कि आपने पैसे दे दिए, आपने content बता दिया, अब तो भाई CTR
We get a perfect output at the end of it.
डन, अब तो सेल्स आनी है. ऐसा नहीं होगा. You have to test it. You have to give it time, just like you give time to anything, to meta A/B testing, right? You have to give every campaign time. So I think that is where the brands are coming from. Nowadays they understand, after a few years now they understand कि अच्छा, we cannot expect immediate results. We'll have to first launch, especially for smaller brands. They are looking out for brand awareness. पहले लोगों को बताओ तो कि
What
the
your
brand
product is all
exists.
about.
Our products exist. And then maybe move on to selling them, or because see, as I said, the audience has become really educated. Depends on your audience, of course, but in general we have become much more educated. We are not looking out for, we will see an ad and immediately say ki nahi, ye to ad hai, right? So what now brands are doing is that they are creating ads that, which is UGC, they are creating ads that look like testimonials, and are looking like original authentic content. So that is exactly what you're looking at. If you have noticed on Instagram, you'll see a lot of aesthetic content, and then एक बीच में cringe आ जाएगा video, and you'll see the cringe video that has been shared the most, because aesthetic content people don't share, right? They will watch it, and then because there are like 10 different girls who are looking beautiful, doing a makeup routine, and then there's going to be one person, and that becomes the most famous, the cringe, like khatti topic hai. For the last 1 month I've just been watching those videos, because it's not Instagram, it's not a normal thing that you see while scrolling. It cuts the the pattern that's already there. So that is what I think brands should also focus on, because that's what you want to do with every platform, right? You want to kind of break the algorithm and make sure that people see something new and original.
And Himanshu, we all spoke about a lot about creative freedom, about understanding the brand, understanding the audience. Now, let's understand that today with AI, you've got a lot of freedom. You can do a lot of things, but they somewhat or the other come with negative connotations or criticism of some sort or the other of how AI could be not used in the best way possible. We recently, I think everyone's read about what happened with the Katrina's image, or an image of any other influencers. So why we give creative freedom? Where do you think is that line that can be drawn in terms of with virtual influencers as well?
Right. So I think ethics in AI or with virtual humans is a very huge topic that we can discuss for hours and hours. I think it is our responsibility as creators in this field and brands in this field that we set the rules and regulations in place, and it is already too late. I would say it's not the time, it's already too late. For example, there are a lot of virtual humans that do not disclose that they're virtual humans, right? For Kyra, the number one thing that you see on her profile is that she's a virtual influencer. But there are virtual humans and AI content creators that never mention. So they are potentially manipulating their audience by posing someone as real, someone as who's a real person, or imitating someone. So anyone who has ever done a podcast, you can make them say anything. That was previously possible in audio, now it's possible in video also. So if you've ever done a podcast in your life, or if you've ever given a speech on video, now anyone can make you say anything. And these tools are not that expensive anymore. So there are a lot of lines that have already been crossed. People are creating ads with influencers promoting products that the influencer has no idea that their image and likeness is being used. So I think what needs to be done is the platforms, which is Instagram, YouTube, etc. They need to set parameters in place that can identify this kind of content. We, as the creators of this technology, whoever is working on AI technology, needs to get into that conversation. Of course, the government needs to come in, the creators and the brands need to come in. So there needs to be, just like there are advertisement guidelines, there's Advertisement Standard Council in India. There needs to be an AI guideline body that with all of the stakeholders come together and set these rules in place, that you cannot impersonate someone, and the AI people needs to be in place. Maybe if there are famous person, if someone is creating a deepfake of a famous person, the tool stops it at the point of origin only. Why let it go to the point that it's published then it's been taken down? So there is a huge effort that needs to be taken place, and we need to do it now before, like I said, it's already too late. So they, of course, we are working with all the brands on, we never fool the audience, we never tell the audience. For example, in skincare products, Kyra does not have real skin, right? So it cannot be that her skin is getting better, so we cannot make any claim like that. So we are setting whatever we can do at our part, but I think this needs to be a greater effort on everyone to get the ethics and get the rules and regulations in place.
But Ananya, today with a product like yours as well, I think somewhere you would want people who've used the product to talk about it, because as you said, it's a very good point. I mean, why would I promote a skincare brand when I don't really have real skin? So with a product like yours as well, would you want to maybe even associate with people who are not users of the product and just going to maybe do it for monetary support that it's going to bring them?
Yes. So in another thing that we another thing that we kind of worked on, Sukham, is we realized that there are three parts of everything, right? The buyer, the decider, and an influencer. Yeah. So the influencer can be anybody. It can be their mother, it can be their wife, it can be their girlfriend. In Sukham's case, it can be their wife and girlfriend. And the decider is always the man, but the influencer can be anybody. So using other strategies and really focusing on other aspects of their lives, even focusing on women, sometimes educating women, educating men. So for us, education has been a big thing, right? We have always tried to educate the people about what exactly we are doing and how we are solving the problem, and more importantly, what is sexual wellness and the basics of it, because people are not aware, because people don't talk about it. It's a big taboo. So that is the education ke through we make sure that people come in and understand the product. So educate, you can educate anybody. You can educate their wives, you can educate their girlfriends, you can educate their doctors, right? So that is a medium that we have used at Sukham and has worked for us.
Lovely. And Shivangi, since you're the only content creator over here, would want to know from you that the algorithm of platforms change a lot. Now, I know I write on LinkedIn, it's easier for me. I tried my hands on Instagram, but now that's something which I will have to work upon. But how do you adapt yourself with these changing algorithms? Because that's somewhat or the other going to affect your reach or also affect what is an outcome you can get for the brands.
Okay. So I think the key to overcome all of this is to be more consistent, is what I feel. There's going to be a time when an X thing would work and a Y would not work. So I always believe in the consistency as being my first priority over anything. However, with the changing times and with everything that's changing, I think the quality needs to get better. So for example, when I started out as someone who even nobody knows about me, but now I know that there are some people out there who know me. Now last night only I was giving it a very careful thought. I said, Shivangi, now it's all over. You not produce anything and everything that comes to your mind on Instagram. This has to be a very careful a very careful thought that you have to give to it. So with changing times, I think experimentation is more important, because you never know that an algorithm might work good for you, but the similar thing would not work great for the other party. And I have seen that working for me. Last 1 year, entire 2023, I have been experimenting with my Instagram content just to make it look better. Okay, in the rush, or I should say in the urge of doing things better and the best, I have end up doing nothing. And I'm being very honest and upfront. I remember completing my 100K target back then in 2022. Since 2022 till 2023, and it's almost getting over. In last 1 year, I have just been experimenting things in and out, seeing what content works better, how can I change things out. I don't want to just be an English coach or a skills coach. I want to get better at it. In that verge of experimenting, I lost that consistent touch. Though I have tried putting 4 to 5 content pieces every week, but that's something I just can't help out. But the idea is that experimentation is good. It's always good to start experimenting because algorithms are all crazy. I mean, understanding and decoding an algorithm will take a lot of your time and you would waste that time. So it's important that you start doing things out, start looking at it, look at the trend, look at the pattern, and then follow it. People like me, I very well know what works good on Instagram for me, but I still wanted to experiment because I wanted to change the entire way and outlook of my page. So I think experimentation is important. I'm sure, Neha, you would understand this from LinkedIn's point of view. There have been people who are getting massive likes and comments with those bot groups that are there. And trust me, I was shocked to see what people are doing.
Yeah.
You know, the content pieces where the content creator himself or herself doesn't know what he has written, they are getting likes that are brimming. And it's all bot. All 100K plus influencers. So, I mean, that wouldn't take you far off, is what I believe.
I think those are short-term remedies, as this says what it is.
Yeah.
And Himanshu, I'm sorry, I think we're running short of time. There's enough to be spoken about on this topic. But Himanshu and, Ananya, I'd like to, from your end, one again from the influencer perspective and one from the brand perspective. Himanshu, especially for you, because, you have created something which could be the next big thing. But along with what you're anyways doing, what do you think is the next big move that maybe brands or influencers should start preparing themselves from now itself to be able to make a larger mark in the industry and the size that the industry already is about?
Right. So I'll first talk about what Shivangi has said. I think we are all at the mercy of the algorithms, right? Someday the same post, same time will get 5,000 likes and someday it will get 2,000 likes. And there's no explanation whatsoever. I think what Shivangi has done, I believe she has some Instagram, WhatsApp or Telegram lists. So if there's any way you can own your audience, you can take some of your audience that it cannot be taken away from you. For example, you might have 200,000 followers, but if you're not getting any likes, then that audience doesn't mean that much. So if there's any way you can take your audience outside, if any influencer is listening to this, I would recommend build your Telegram channels, WhatsApp channels, build your email list, etc. Talking about the next big thing in influencer marketing, I really love the work that some of the Western influencers have done. If you look at Mr. Beast with his chocolate bar, or if you look at Logan Paul with his Prime energy drink, I believe in India, influencers come after the campaign has been decided. The product is already there, everything has been decided, and then they go and I want to get this influencer or get me 10 influencers. I think the next big thing is to get influencers involved in the creation process itself, whether it's either creating the product with them, and just because they know what the audience want. If it's a makeup creator, they would know the best thing. That's the next best thing coming in the makeup series. Or
is soon going to see Kyra with a new product also?
We would definitely love to enter. If we can find the right fit, we would love to create a product that we know what the audience wants, right? So get in the either the creation process of the product or in the creation process of the campaign at least. So it's not just that the campaign tagline is decided, you give the influencer a brief, give me a 30-second, 1-minute video. So I think that's the next big thing. And if you look at the economic results of what Mr. Beast or Logan Paul has done, they're earning billions, right? So if the right product with the right influencer is done to the right audience, I think this will be the thing that can really kick off the boost in the Indian influencer industry.
Super. And Ananya, what are your thoughts? What is the next big thing?
So I think that influencers can influence, but brands and products have to sell at the end of the day, right? The name of the game is to optimize. Whatever influencer content de dega, what best to do with that content you should know as a brand, right?
How best to be able to utilize that content is also what is very, very important.
Exactly. जो already चल रहा है उसको कैसे मिल कर सकते हैं, right? जैसे for example we got a lot of testimonials जिनको हमने shoppable videos के हिसाब से convert किया, बदल दिया and made transaction much easier using tools like sales assist, right? So that is something that brands can do. Whatever they already have, optimize on that. Because already brands have a lot of content, right? Everybody is producing content, even brands nowadays. So milk that. Whatever you're getting, even from influencers, milk that. Make sure that it stays for a long time so you can optimize on it, right?
I think there's no time for any other question left, but thank you so much, all of you. Kinjal, over to you. And in case there are any questions that you all would like to ask, then please go ahead, Kinjal.
Thank you so much, Neha, for an amazing session. Thank you, Himanshu, Ananya, Shivangi. I think it was a very, very informative session. We do have a couple of questions in the chat box, so I'll just read some of them. And we had put up the event on LinkedIn, so we had received some questions beforehand as well. So there's a question from Tejinder sir. And I think Himanshu, I think you'll be the best person to answer this. How does one handle emotion of a virtual influencer versus of a real influencer? So how does that emotion game is played? Because when we talk about relatability for a real influencer versus virtual influencer, emotions play a major role, I think, in that front.
Right. So people follow a lot of influencers for their journey. Typically, influencer starts off with very modest beginnings and then they become something huge. And this journey, people relate to it a lot. In the case of a virtual influencer, so we have a whole backstory of Kyra that this is her story, right? This is her journey, and that journey is still playing out. So in the next 1 to 2 years, you'll see her transform into something, and there will be a character development. So you'll see that emotion come in. Maybe she has relationships with other virtual influencers. So we are trying to incorporate that. We are yet to see if people will see the same amount of emotion they relate with a real. Obviously, no, we can never replace a real person. But we have seen, so the interesting thing is we have seen emotional messages from the audience. So we get all sorts of DMs for Kyra, emotional, inquisitive. Some people ask her, are you a real human? Are you going to take over the human world? Do you believe in life? We get all sorts of philosophical questions, emotional questions. So I think we human beings are always interested in stories ever since like ancient times, right? So this is, again, if you can make the story interesting, people will get invested in it.
I'm sure it will be a part of Kyra's evolution or a virtual influencer's of evolution, right? So Neha, I think Neha needs to go. Thank you, Neha, for moderating this session, and thank you for this amazing insights that you have given us. There was one question for you. If we can spare a minute, it'll be great. So, because Neha, you come from an agency background, from a brand side, and as an influencer yourself, somebody has asked how does one balance brand philosophies, creative freedom, and technological enhancement, ensuring there is a seamless convergence and alignment between all the three elements. So,
one is that a lot of times people say you're an influencer, and I'm like, there's a long way to go about what writing content is much easier than actually being in front of the camera. But I think, adding on to one point that Shivangi said, it's an ever-changing time. I remember when we started out 3 years ago, there were a lot of things that worked out very well over there as compared to today. Now, today, adding on to what Ananya said, a lot of our content or a lot of what we create, we're also looking at content marketing because we feel that is something which brands can utilize upon. Am I directly going to be able to get the likes or the click-through rates or the engagement that I want? Maybe not. But the easier way out is that why not take the content from the influencers and why not then move on to actually creating content around it? Second, I think in terms of technology, again, I mean, not to the level of which Himanshu's been able to do it, but a lot of clients and we ourselves have started talking about what is the metrics of the influencer. Everyone, somewhere or the other, at the back of their mind, know that there are going to be bot followers, but somewhere or the other, is my audience matching or not? Now we've had clients telling us we don't want spillover digitally. So if I'm targeting in Mumbai, I only want the following to be in Mumbai, and I'm like, that is not going to happen. I think Shivangi is also moving ahead across saying that is not going to happen. But I think that's where, again, the fact that content can be utilized, the fact that how am I going to be able to build around it to amplify that, is something we're working on. And trust me, what I'm saying today, maybe a week later, it's become old news, and we need to then transform and get on to something else. But I think it's ever changing, and you have to keep adapting to what new you're learning.
Absolutely. I think content has been a part of marketing and branding, I think, since forever. Since the Amul character has been there, the content has been created since then. So I think content has been the center of the entire marketing universe. It can be distributed in various formats, but yeah, yes, absolutely. What you say is absolutely making sense. So thank you, Neha, for the moderation, and thank you for being a part of this event on a Saturday morning. And yeah, you can go ahead for your meeting.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Thanks a lot.
So I think, Ananya, there's one question for you as well. What should agency professional focus on when working with a brand to have a more complete understanding and wider viewpoint?
So one of the things that agencies should focus on is ROAS, which is return of ad spend, right? That is the one thing that brands are looking out for at this point of time. So hi, am I audible? Okay. So one thing that agency should be focusing on, there's the one thing that agencies should be focusing on is ROAS, right? Return on ad spend. So that is exactly what brands are looking at this point of time. Again, likes and reach, and that is something that we were looking at, say, 2-3 years back. But today, it's really important that there is a return on the ad that on the spends that we are doing as a brand, especially for smaller brands. Yeah.
Yes, and I think at Wave also, I think the brands that we are getting in are all focusing on an ROI-driven marketing now, and the people have become more aware on the marketing spends, and it's not. It's being it's been monitored very closely now by brands on.
Yes.
Yeah. Today's session was truly enriching. Thank you, Ananya. Thank you, Himanshu. I think we've reached a stage where influencer is no more an influencer, and they've become a part of your brand communication strategy. And a lot of strategy is designed around how the UGC content is going to impact the brand and the revenue out of the content that they are creating. And it is, as Himanshu mentioned, that we've not yet reached the peak. We have just started. So I am pretty sure that it's a long way to go with a layer of tech-enabled options that are coming, like Himanshu is creating and a lot of other entrepreneurs are creating. We are soon going to probably match up with what the Western world or the Chinese or the other Asian countries have reached with influencer marketing, I'm sure. And thank you for the session. It was a very enriching session and enlightening one. And I think the guests have been very patient for a Saturday morning. And thank you so much, everybody, for joining in. For all the guests who have, please do like our Startup Grind page, subscribe to the pages. You will receive an email shortly on the details of the link and details with the links of Startup Grind pages. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. And for anybody having any questions further on, you can always mail us on the Startup Grind email ID. And is it okay if you can reach out to Ananya and Himanshu on their LinkedIn IDs, which also will be shared in the following mail. Thank you, everybody, for joining.